Greetings, this is my week 2 reflection for my contemporary issues in science education. And so this week our topic of discussion was science educational reform. And so, dear administrator, the current state of science educational reform is that we need students to do more science, and we need teachers to be put in situations where they can do more science so that they can in turn teach their students how to do more science. And so what I mean by that is we need to get our teachers in a position where they are able to conduct scientific investigation as a scientist would. They need to be comfortable with the process of science, and only when they're comfortable with the process of science can they teach our students how to do science and be scientifically literate members of society. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the things that need to be keep in mind when we're talking about what needs to be the focus of current science educational reform. So when I say doing real science, we're talking about looking at the physical world and not always knowing the right answer. In fact, there's a lot of things where there may not even be a right answer or more than one answer altogether. And so we need to stress that to our students and make sure that they realize that there may not always be a right answer. We need to focus on the process and practices of science and not just the content knowledge. If we force science teachers to learn all about the content and ignore the processes, it's likely they're going to feel even more inadequate, as science is hard. And a lot of the last 100 years of science is not accessible to every single teacher as we're trying to train science teachers. So there needs to be a balance. We need to make sure that teachers can model inquiry for our students and we need to model inquiry for our teachers rather than just to fill their background knowledge. Teachers need to be guides, and they need to be comfortable leading their students in scientific investigations. A trickle-down effect is not likely to work. The entire staff needs to be part of scientific reform, science education reform. So this means that you either need to make sure that people who are getting training can adequately keep accountable the teaching and passing on of that information to their colleagues, or involve all teachers and set aside that time. If you can, get real scientists in your classroom or involved so they can help your students understand what scientists actually do. And make sure not to sacrifice the exploration and fun needed in science in search of just giving students the right answer or the correct answer, and giving science educators a chance to not know the right answer, to have exploration and fun, come to a consensus on their own, and kind of have that thrill and fun of learning science again so that they can realize what they need to provide for their students. Really important. Some strategies for scientific education reform. Teachers do need to know the process, but they also do need to have a fairly good grasp of the content knowledge. And it would take years for teachers to really learn and be able to teach all the standards that most educators have to deal with. And so we need to look at a national level, and the national science standards are working to do this. But we need to make sure that on a national level we know what it is science education needs to teach, and we need to make sure that we have resources available for teachers to learn how to manage and how to develop in a way that will enable them to teach these standards across the board. we need to make sure that there's the ends and the means for what exactly what exact courses we need our students to take, and then what is the purpose for them taking those courses. And in science, is prepare them to be scientifically literate members of society that are able to make decisions and to manage themselves in a world that's filled with a lot of science, a lot of technology, a lot of mathematics. We need to make sure that we focus on higher order learning objectives so that we're making sure our students are getting enough meat in our science courses. We need to make sure that there's expectations for high and low achievers, and we need to make sure that there's enough technology, enough training, and the proper curriculum written so that teachers have something to work with and help them along the goals that they have. And we also need indicators to track content and achievement of our students. So in order to develop a curriculum for science, we need to have some standards that we can agree upon. There's frankly too much content in most science, in most state standards, and so not only do we need a national scope, but we need a reduced amount of content to focus on. We need that content to focus on genuine understanding and in helping students be scientifically literate so they can do science. They understand what science can do and what science cannot do, the question science can answer and that it cannot answer. They need to be able to do scientific investigations, know what the process is, be comfortable going through and conducting an investigation, critiquing and arguing each other, evaluating the results and sharing their information. And teachers, most importantly, need support to implement all stages of any scientific reform. Change takes a long time, and in order for teachers to be able to properly make a difference in their classroom, they need to be given the time, energy, and resources to take a step-by-step approach where they can work on changing their classroom one step at a time. And so trying to flip the system on its head is gonna take some major work, and the most important thing you can do is support your science teachers, give them the time, the energy, the money that they need in order to get doing science and to get their kids doing science. So this week, the go away or the takeaway for science education reform is we need to make sure our science teachers have continued support from administrators to do science. I hope that this has been helpful.